Hey guys, Addict Cyclist here with finally a first ride impressions video of the Factor Ostro. So if you've been following along with my vlog series on my channel, kind of go into detail of why I consider purchasing this bike. To recap, basically I was looking for something that was a little bit more compliant, a little bit more comfortable, you know, while still being very aero and being pretty significantly lighter than most of the aero bikes, and even some of the dedicated all-arounder climbing bikes. So just in a recap here, so the Cannondale System 6 is a phenomenal bike. Been on it for 2 seasons, have nothing negative to say. It's fast, it's twitchy, it's low, extremely aero, extremely fun to ride, except it is pretty rough riding. It's not comfortable. The position's comfortable on the size 54, but the ride is very harsh, almost teeth chattering here. So I'm not going to go into depth. That's my opinion on this. You know, you might have your own, but I wanted something to try that kind of ticked all the boxes, and this Factor seemed to do it. Seemed to be, you know, a lot lighter than most of the other aero bikes in the market, all while being, you know, more aero than most of the other aero bikes in the market, you know, and competing significantly and probably winning in my opinion. If you're going to compare it to a Tarmac SL7, if you're going to compare it to an Amanda, the Scott Addict, and some other all-arounders that have been coming into the market that are kind of light and also aero at the same time. So again, if you want to find some recap on some of the reasons why and why I chose Factor, and the fact that you can kind of build a custom bike all in-house. Yeah, of course, if you buy a frame set, you can, you know, piece together the frame set, you know, with parts and components. But to do it all under one roof and have it delivered to your house, I think Factor is the only one that's doing that right now. So just to kind of give you a recap of how it rode. So again, I'm comparing it to a System 6. It's not really a fair comparison because one is really a aero all-arounder, a lightweight aero all-arounder, and one is a dedicated aero bike. There's about 1.25 pounds difference between the two, being the Factor coming in at 16.25 pounds, and it was phenomenal. It actually exceeded my expectations. Not only is it aero, but it feels extremely light. It puts down power effortlessly. I think that has a lot to do with how stiff the down tube, fork, chain stays are, and it responds to power better than the System 6. Although the System 6 might get maybe 1 point higher on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of holding speed, but you have to work the System 6 a lot more to get it to speed. It is not responsive. It is not really a sprinting bike, but it's more of like a breakaway or a domestique bike, or, you know, let's call it the way that it looks, a glorified time trial bike with drop bars. So, you know, this bike kind of ticked the boxes. And again, I didn't do a complete analysis. You know, did not hire a watch shop to come in and do a full-blown aero comparison. This is not really about that. But on the same loop that I've done, you know, a couple hundred times, you know, this bike felt no slower or no faster, but a hell of a lot more comfortable. So for me, you know, being comfortable is important. You know, there's days where I'll do 50 miles on the System 6, and I just really don't want to get back on it the next day. You know, where this, you know, I felt that, you know, get back on it day in and day out. You know, the areas on the route where I would normally brace for impact, literally, you know, you hear a loud bang. You know, this System 6 is so stiff. Where this, I was bracing for impact and it glided over like a Cadillac. Yet it's extremely stiff, extremely responsive. It feels very, very light between the legs, and it is probably one of the best value bikes for the dollar in the higher price range bikes. You know, I was watching one of GC Performance's videos where he was reviewing the new Pinarello Dogma F, with the new 12-speed Shimano Dura Ace group set, and with shallow wheels. You know, that bike came in at 16 pounds basically on the button. You know, this thing came in at 16.25 with a pretty heavy cork carbon crankset and power meter, and 60 millimeter, I think they're 56 millimeter technically, but Black Ink calls them 60 wheels. So this thing can easily compete with the best. And again, it's extremely aero, extremely comfortable. You know, those are two things that you really can't find a whole lot in a bike. You know, I know the Madone, you know, kind of ticks those boxes. I do have a Madone myself, so again, it is light. I have a Madone 9, so the rim brake version, so it does feel light. The new ones are a lot heavier, almost 2 pounds heavier. I've seen some scales tip 18, 19 pounds on some of the new Madones. You know, and the ISO speed does help, you know, compensate for, you know, road chatter and buzz, you know, and some compliance. But if you're looking for a complete package from a brand that puts its bicycles and its customers first, opposed to their balance sheets like some of the bigger brands, where it's only about cost and cutting corners, you know, Factor has not cut corners. Factor probably has the highest level of quality control, the tolerances, the feel, the look, because again, they own their own carbon factory. So I will actually include a link to an interview that Silka did with Rob Gatellis, the owner, CEO, and also an engineer for Factor. Very informative video about just the industry itself, how it's evolved, you know, what made him kind of want to kind of take Factor to the next level and kind of create a niche boutique brand that you're seeing more and more of these days. And you know, I'm just extremely happy with this purchase. I really am. You know, I was very lucky to get this bike. I know that, you know, bikes right now are very hard to kind of acquire here in the aftermath of the pandemic, but I am just extremely pleased. I mean, the fit and finish of this bike, I'm going to kind of get some close-ups, and I did this with some of my other videos, but I'm just going to kind of showcase here the beautiful carbon work in this bike. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. It feels like you're literally riding something premium. You know, the System 6, if I were to compare it to cars, I'm a car guy, you know, the System 6 is kind of like a muscle car. You know, just blunt force trauma. It's fast and not very refined, and it's just good at what it was meant to do, go fast. Where this is like more like a Porsche GT3, very refined, very fast, very nimble, very light, very agile, and it's kind of really the complete package here. You know, for this price point, you know, if we were to compare it with a Specialized S-Works Tarmac SL7, you know, this complete bike, spec'd as you see it, is $8,200 out the door. You're not going to get anywhere near that on an S-Works bike. I think they're tipping the scales, I think, at close to $14,000 these days, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But I've seen some builds come up that way with some of the component choices and power meters. This bike makes a very interesting sound when you're riding it. It makes like a whirling sound. You know, every aero bike, especially with deep wheels, has a very unique sound, but this makes a pretty unique sound. I don't know if it's the wheels, if it's the airflow coming through this wide stance fork, hitting the Energizer channel that you can see here that was carved out of the fork. And again, if you can view some of my other videos, you'll kind of see a couple part series about, you know, some of the close-ups of the frame. Again, why I purchased this Factor, the uniqueness of Factor being able to build a complete bike all under one roof. It's the wide stance fork. So I'm very anxious to get out on this thing in a group ride. The route that I did was about 21 miles. I averaged 21.3 miles an hour. My Garmin says 21.5. At about little less than 210 watts. So, and that's just me being solo. So that's pretty impressive. And again, I basically have done the same day in and day out on this Cannondale. But again, you know, this Cannondale, you know, it's not really a fair comparison again, because it's a little bit lower. It's 5 millimeters lower on the stack, because I have one spacer removed. Very similar geometry, believe it or not. But this bike is just extremely comfortable. It's absolute massive bottom bracket. Has a lot to do with, you know, how responsive it is and how easy it is to get to speed. This is beautiful carbon. Unfortunately, here in New Jersey, it's getting cold. It's coming to the end of the season here, so I'm going to hopefully get a few more rides in and kind of tuck it away for the winter. You know, if you've been following along with the channel, I'm a mountain biker, so I'll be spending some time in the woods, reviewing some more gear, and anxious to get out on this thing. So basically what's going to happen to the System 6, no, I'm not letting it go. It's a fantastic bike. It's not going anywhere. I'm going to make it my dedicated race bike, my crit bike, and I refuse to race this in a crit. I'm sorry. I'm just not racing, you know, $10,000 $10,000, $12,000 valued bike, you know, in a race. It's just not going to happen. Very, very comfortable position. I did leave all of the spacers that came with the bike just to kind of tune in, and I kind of like it where it is, you know, for a more comfortable ride, not as hunched over on the as on the Cannondale. And again, this wasn't really meant to be a complete comparison. I just had nothing else to compare it to at the moment, and I did own a Scott Addict Team Issue, which was very light, 14.2 pounds. All it was light, was not responsive. I climbed well, but did not hold speed well, and really had to work that bike. This bike seems almost effortless, like the Cannondale, but again, comparing it, gets up to speed a lot faster. Hold speed very similar. You know, again, if we're gonna rate on a scale 1 to 10, this is probably a 9, 9.5, where the System 6 is a clear 10, 10 plus. But again, you know, when you're riding the System 6, you're making sacrifices of comfort. You know, getting off the bike, feeling tweaked in your neck, feeling tweaked in your back. You know, there's a few times on rides where the rear wheel just lifts off the ground if I hit a little imperfection in the road, where this seemed very well planted, very stable. Yeah, that's basically it. So I'm going to be reviewing this again one more time after I get a few more rides in with some updates. But again, you know, I ask you to please follow along with the channel. I have been making a multi-part series on this Factor, and looking forward to doing more videos, more reviews. There are a few videos. I think Cycle Speed Tours had compared this to his Tarmac, where the Factor obviously came out on top. But again, it's all subjective to feel and need. You know, a lot of people have that brand, that you have to have that brand. You know, I'm not really one to have a specific brand. I want value for my dollar. That's basically what it comes down to. And I got both of these at a great deal. This was a campaign offer, and I got this through an industry insider program. So again, please like and subscribe. Please, you know, leave some comments, some questions, and I'll be sure to get back to you. And appreciate the views and your time. Be well. Thanks.